Secrets Unwrapped is brought to you in part by White Rocks Design Studio, who has been serving Southern Vermont for over 25 years. The Outdoor Experience, Wisconsin's top-rated guide service on Lake Geneva. Corker Boats, P-Line, New England's #1 craft-made hot sauce with that big craft taste and that big craft heat. Mercer Sport, Targets Unlimited, Sugar Mountain Trading Company, Cooler Guard Spray with the cleaning power of enzymes, Okuma Fishing, and a proud member of the Southwestern Vermont Chamber of Commerce. Welcome in Outdoor Secrets Unwrapped. I'm your host, Chris Bates, and boy, what a special show we have today. We are out on Lake Champlain with our good friend Matt Trombley from Third Alarm Charters, and we are going to be chasing northern pike and smallmouth bass. But before we get started, we got a bunch of questions we want to ask Matt. Thank you so much for stopping by and helping us today.
Absolutely.
It's going to be great. Anyway, what I want to know is I've been in Vermont now for 11 years.
Yep.
And this is the second time that I've been on Lake Champlain. So I need a refresher course. Tell us a little bit about Lake Champlain. What is it? Why is it? And the question, too, I have is I understand it used to be one of the Great Lakes.
Well, they attempted to. Yep. So it was about 20 years ago, our legislators applied to make it the 6th Great Lake. And the good old Great Lakes Fishery Commission didn't want to share their funds. So,
right, of course.
We still call it the 6th Great Lake. 127 miles from Whitehall, New York to the Canadian border. Wow. Over 500 square miles of water to fish. Dozens of islands. We're in the southern end of the islands region right now. We're on the shore of South Hero. And just a phenomenal fishery of cold water, warm water, special species, you name it, we got it here.
So what, I know it's a huge moneymaker for the state of Vermont and for guides to come out. What are some of the species that you do chase out here?
Well, if you looked at 4 species that probably 90% of your fishermen are going to be targeting, trout and salmon, which also makes up brown trout, steelhead trout, lake trout, and Atlantic salmon. Those are our cold water species here. And, of course, bass and pike. And right now, Lake Champlain's in one of the top 5 destinations for the tournament anglers nationally when you start looking at being able to put a bag together, as they call it, of both smallmouth and largemouth bass. We've got hundreds of pike here. We have chain pickerel. We have muskellunge. We have a great new muskie program that's being started. So just about anything for any fisherman from spring through summer into fall. And there's guys that'll fish open water right to the holidays.
So now, does the lake freeze? I always wanted to know, does the lake freeze solid, or is it something where it's just in the bays?
If you looked at lake from north to south, the extreme southern end from the Crown Point Bridge all the way down to Whitehall generally freezes in rock solid that you could ice fish it all winter long. With our climate change going on, we haven't seen the whole lake freeze rock solid. When I say the whole lake, the Broad Lake in front of Burlington, Plattsburgh, the last couple of winters, that's been open water. And there's been some guys, as long as the ramps are open, that'll be out trolling for trout and salmon in the middle of the wintertime, December and January. So this area we're in right now, Mallett's Bay, the upper inland sea, as they call it, the islands, that generally freezes in and has productive ice fishing throughout the winter.
So then basically
the lake is a deep lake, right?
Absolutely.
What's the deepest part?
The deepest part is down in the Charlotte region, the southern end of what they call the Broad Lake. It's over 400 feet. A lot of the Broad Lake will average 250 to 300. And then when you get into your back bays here in this area we're in right now is about 80 feet is the deepest. A lot of it's under 50.
Right. Now, lake trout, is that one of the bigger species here?
Yeah, when you start looking at overall numbers, it is the highest number of cold water species in the lake is a lake trout. We have a phenomenal lake trout fishery here, and you can generally catch lake trout year-round. They're coming into their spawning period right now, mid-October into November. It's all based on water temperature, but your trout and salmon, for the most part, spawn in the fall. Steelhead spawn in the springtime.
So the lake trout, I'm obsessed with trout.
Sure.
I love small stream trout
I know you do.
I mean, it's like, for me, coming from the Midwest, it's like, wow, got one.
Sure.
The little tug. So lake trout fishing, how do you guys attack those?
There's two different tactics that we use between our vessels. I run 3 different vessels. My largest vessel is 28-footer, strictly a trolling boat.
Okay.
And with trolling, you get multiple species of cold water fish from, as I said, Atlantic salmon, steelhead, and lake trout. And later in the summertime, we do what's called vertical jigging. If anybody's gone out in the ocean and caught cod or haddock, ground fish, we're doing the same tactics as lighter tackle. That's all it is.
Right.
So it's very productive. Those lake trout set up on deep water humps and reefs in the summertime. Not unlikely to do 20 to 40 fish in a trip. So, and the people have got the rod right in their hand. They feel that thump right there instead of waiting for a rod to fire, which is what trolling is.
Right. Now, what about the lamprey situation? Now, I know big lakes, Lake Ontario, Lake Michigan, Erie, all that, Lake Champlain. Mm-hmm. The lamprey situation, is it as bad as they say?
Nope, it has gotten much better. Back in the 80s, we had, when you talk about Fish and Wildlife, they talk about wounding numbers, and we had over an 80% wounding on our cold water fishery. We're down under 30% now, and that is the goal of not only state Fish and Wildlife, but U.S. Fish and Wildlife. They work in concert to treat the streams to the small larval stage lamprey. They were born in the spring. They're still in the streams right now, so they treat them with a chemical that kills them before they get into the lake, and this is that time of year to do it, September, October.
Right.
So their treatment is doing great, and I have killed the least amount of lampreys, adult lampreys, this summer that probably have in 5 years. So we're doing really good.
Ugly things, aren't they?
That they are. Yep.
So last year I made it out to the Salmon River, and I just mentioned this. I was watching the Kings jump, right? Yep. I watched one that had a lamprey on it, but when it jumped out of the water, the lamprey fell off.
Yep.
Is that a common thing, too?
Well, it's hard to tell. Usually when we catch a fish, you can see a wound that's on the side of them. You can tell whether that wound is fresh or it's healed over. Most of the time, they'll stay on until they get netted. And once they're in the boat, I pop them off, and then we sever them with a knife and then put them back in. The seagulls get to have a meal on them, but we don't put them back, obviously. But yeah, I've seen salmon in the Salmon River myself. Lake Ontario has the same issue. They get bigger lampreys, a bigger fishery out there. That's all there is to it. But the treatment process has to continue to keep on, and they do different streams every year on a 3-year cycle.
Yeah. So I'm glad you cleared that up, because I think a lot of people don't understand that these bigger lakes have lampreys, and people would say, really, a lamprey out here?
Yep.
Doesn't make sense, but
they seem to attach themselves more to the cold water species. They want to be in that deeper water. Lake trout are their top fish, and then they'll get on the salmon well. Very rarely do we ever catch them on pike and bass.
And then, I don't know how, I think we're going to run out of time here, but hopefully I can get this in. Before we got on your boat here, we were talking in the parking lot about shooting pike. Mm-hmm. Vermont is one of the last places, right?
Yep. Yeah, Vermont has got a heritage of being able to shoot pike in the springtime when they're spawning. And the challenge with that, it's hard to differentiate between a muskellunge, a northern pike, and a pickerel in the water, and especially in the spring. But you can use archery equipment or firearms. And you're really not shooting the fish, you're shocking right next to them.
Right.
And of course, when we talk about safety of shooting out of water with a ricocheting bullet, that's to each choice.
See, that's one of my things is I was a huge pheasant hunter, and I know what ground swatting is. That's kind of ground swatting, isn't it?
It certainly is, yeah. Not the safest thing to be doing, but you're finding fewer and fewer people doing it. You know, it's certainly a pastime, but it's a tradition. There's some traditionalists that still like to go out and do it in the springtime.
All right. Well, you know what? Hang tight, because we need to take a commercial break. But while we're doing that, we are going to go look for some pike and smallmouth bass. So we'll be right back with more action right after that.
If you got a lot of love and you don't know where to put it.
Do you love fishing, but hate the fishy smell that comes with it? Then you need Sugar Mountain Trading Company's Fisherman's Soap. This all-natural soap is made with charcoal, rose clay, and coffee to remove even the toughest fishy smells. It also leaves your hands feeling soft and smooth. So next time you're out on the water, don't forget to bring your fisherman's soap. It's the perfect way to keep your hands clean and smelling fresh.
We're gonna let this bad boy go, but wow, look at that fish!
Oh my God, that's a
Wow!
The Outdoor Tip of the Week is brought to you by Targets Unlimited.
Hi folks, I'm Captain Matt Trombley here, Third Alarm Charters, with your Outdoor Tip of the Week. Today's greatest tool in what we were doing fishing is the planer board. And the clip-on planer board comes in multitude of sizes, multitude of manufacturers, and the ease of being able to set them up is one of the biggest things and why I'm a big proponent of them. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars. Anywhere from $10 to $20, you can get different sizes of these planer boards. I happen to use Church Tackle. I really like theirs. You can get them with tattletale flags, but you don't have to have a big planer mash. You don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars tied up in trolling equipment. You clip them right on the fishing line, set them out with a line counter, and you can put them on the water. Easy setup. Great for catching fish trolling. Get some, and that is your tip of the
I'm
week.
Stephen Hand with Main Sport Outfitters here in Rockport, Maine, and you're watching Outdoor Secrets Unwrapped.
Hey, welcome back to Outdoor Secrets Unwrapped. What a time I am having with Captain Matt Trombley on Third Alarm Charters here on Lake Champlain, catching some northern pike. We're going to get to that in a minute, but Matt, I got to talk to you about the equipment.
Absolutely.
What are we using to catch these pike?
I like to use trolling gear, and virtually you can use any type of trolling gear. Rods I'm using today are an 8-foot medium heavy trolling rod. I do other things across the board of my season in trolling for king salmon, Lake Ontario. So these are set up with 20-pound tests. Probably a little overkill for around here. You could get away with 12 or 15-pound. But mainly 300 feet of monofilament with a braid backing on it, and then we run a fluorocarbon leader and running deep diving stick baits off of those.
So a lot of times, you know, people ask about a leader, right? I ask that all the time is, why not directly tie to the line?
So there's a multitude of reasons that we don't do that. First off, we got a barrel swivel that helps take the spin out of that. So
I see.
anytime a lure might roll over, especially if you're using spoons or anything, they're twisting constantly. So it takes that twist out of the barrel swivel. We put a bead above that, so the bead protects the end of the rod eyelet as well. But also anytime we're trolling, you're going to get debris that slides down the fishing line, and that bead helps catch it as well.
Yeah.
So it does a multitude of things. So the fluorocarbon obviously helps with no stretch, but it's also invisible underwater. And again, visibility is not such a big deal when it comes to pike fishing. They're aggressive predators. They're going to smack the lure. But we run pretty much fluorocarbon leaders on all of our rods.
So you don't have to worry so much about them nicking the line, because the lures that we're using generally are hooked more on the side or the top of the mouth.
Yep, and if you look at that bait, he's been hit quite a few times by northern pike, and you can see the teeth marks on there. So yeah, they're normally hitting the tail to the side of the bait, and there's no nick marks up on the fluorocarbon leader.
Right, because that's kind of one thing that I always want to know. You know, I see a lot of guys changing out their leaders or clipping a little off because of the nicks. And now, does this line stretch a little bit, or is this
no? Your mono is going to give a little bit, but your leader's not. Fluorocarbon's got no stretch at all. And you were talking about that. When I say I'm vertical jigging for smallies or something like that, yeah, we do cut it back, and you're trimming that off, and you're always keeping a closer on it. But it's a different tactic, so it's always going to depend on the tactic you're using, the bait you've got, and of course the species you're trying to target.
Right. Now the reels. What I see that you have line counters, and that's one of the things that you need when you're trolling. So tell us a little bit about why you do that.
Yep, so a line counter reel, I use Shimano products. They're probably some of the best on the market. A line counter reel is imperative with this style of trolling because you got to know the depth, and we're doing what we call controlled depth fishing. And what depth these lures are going to dive at is greatly indicative of the distance you put behind the planer board. So I'm running them 50 to 60 feet on average. That's going to get me a 10 to 12-foot dive curve, trying to get those baits down so they're hovering over the weed lines and we're fishing 16, 18 feet of water. So, sometimes like today I had a mix of shallow diving lures. Those are only going to be 4 or 5 feet down. But again, the line counter, it gives me that distance line that I know I'm going to set out, click it at 50, put my board on, then I'll let 150 feet out for every distance I want the board to be away from the boat.
And, and I noticed that the lures we use, they are the profile. We talk profile.
Yep.
In fact, I'll let you explain what that is, because when other people see the lures, they're going to go, oh, it looks like a minnow.
Yep.
But we're trying to mimic some sort of bait fish. So what kind of bait fish are we trying to mimic with these types of profiles?
Well, when you're looking at, especially northern pike fishing, they're shallow water predators. They're not going to be over deep water like lake trout are. So they're going to be eating everything from smelt to alewives to yellow perch, suckers, you name it. And I usually look at my cloud cover to decide whether I'm going to go with bright lures, dark lures, something that's more of a natural pattern. The silver and blue definitely looks a lot closer to a smelt or an alewife, but a lot of times a perch pattern will work very well as well.
Right.
And again, those long, narrow baits are going to have a nice tight wiggle to them, and that wiggle is going to be based on your lure speed. And our trolling speed, generally when I'm trolling for pike, is going to average 2.5 to 2.75, somewhere in there.
Yeah, because I asked that earlier. I was like, wow. Because when I was fishing walleyes with another buddy of mine in the Bay of Green Bay, we were at 1.3, somewhere around there.
Yep.
So some fish want faster moving bait.
Yep.
Some want slower.
Absolutely, yeah. And, walleyes definitely are usually a slower trolling, especially bait fishing. If you're using a crawler harness, 1.5 miles is generally what you're going to run.
Right.
When I troll for lake trout, bottom trolling, 1.9 to 2, but my salmon, they want it similar to these pike, 2.5, 2.6. It's that lure speed that's going to give the action. Those fish are going to attack the bait.
And before I forget, too, the rod. You mentioned it's a trolling rod. What's the difference between a trolling rod and, say, a regular 6.6 medium bass rod? What is the difference? Because some people may not know why we have certain rods for certain applications.
Sure. So a trolling rod's going to have a blank that is beefy at the base and narrows all the way down, but it's got a lot of spine strength that we're going to be using off from downriggers, off from planer boards. And we run different length ones. An 8-footer is average that I can run on planer boards or downriggers, but I run longer ones. You see 2 of them today we have running off the side of the boat. I also use those for dipsy divers. Those are 9.5-footers, so we want them to get out away from the boat. But again, they're designed for trolling to use with a line counter reel, and they're not something that you're going to be casting a lure with. They're strictly for trolling.
Right. And people troll because you could cover a lot of ground, a lot of water.
A lot of water, you got it, yeah.
A lot of water.
Yep.
And you could always be changing up the depths where you're not casting. I mean, there's a lot of traditional guys that want to just go cast and go up close, but I think this way is a lot better because, the camaraderie and everything that goes on while you're waiting before a rod fires.
Yep, and the other part is that anybody can hop on board and come in and have a chance to reel some fish in. Right. With trolling, the boat does a lot of the work. The captain or first mate's going to set the rigs, the lure selection, etc. Right. You don't have to have a lot of skill. And for a lot of my tourism-based clients that want to come out, they're going to come out and get a chance to catch some fish, maybe catch a few different species with the trolling. Especially this time of year in the fall, you're going to get a mix, sometimes a smallmouth bass, occasional walleye, but pike are going to make up the bulk of our catch as it did today. With trolling, I can mix it up for trout and salmon, and I can add different things as well.
All right. You know what? I want to look at the northern pike because I want you to talk. We caught a couple. We'll take one out of the live well, and we can talk a little bit about that. We've been catching northern pike today, and if it's possible, can you explain to our viewers what a pike is and the difference between a pike, a muskie, and a pickerel?
Absolutely. Yeah, Lake Champlain's very fortunate to have all 3 species. Chain pickerel are the smallest of those 3 species. They're all of the Esox family. Chain pickerel are going to be more greenish, and their chains that go up and down their body are going to be yellow.
So I see that.
So this is a northern pike, and you notice their chains don't connect. They side through the skin color pattern, but they're more whitish, where a chain pickerel is going to have a lot more yellow in there.
So this is the chain, the little dots, right?
Yep. So a northern pike have got more of a dot, where the pickerel is going to have a chain where they all kind of connect. And they usually are only on the top side, not all the way down.
Yeah.
You also want to look at your cheek covering. This guy's still pretty fresh. And knowing your scale pattern, the northern pike scale pattern goes all the way down to their chin, where the prickle's only on top. And if you caught a muskie, they're going to be more of a green color, and they've got more horizontal bars on their side. They don't have that chain look down the side. So, you know, again, they're going to be the biggest of the Esox family.
Yeah.
And, of course, one of the biggest things that we tell everybody, and you can see on the camera, we call them toothy critters for
look
a
at
reason.
right there. Look at those teeth.
Hence the reason I've got a gripper.
Right.
I'm not sticking my fingers in there. I'm definitely not lipping him like I would a largemouth or smallmouth bass.
Right.
Unless you want to go to the hospital and get some stitches.
Right.
So, but they get a bad rap. They're good eating fish. They're great white meat. And if you know how to flay them, get through the bones, they're very edible. I had some on the grill last night.
Everybody, Chris Bates, Outdoor Secrets Unwrapped. I am on Captain Matt Trombley's boat, the Third Alarm Charters, and we are out pike fishing. What a freaking blast this is. If you guys ever get a chance to come out fishing with Matt, we're going to put his phone number and his email and everything in here. And coming out on Lake Champlain, I'm telling you, what a blast this is. Man, and the conversation, holy cow, I'm telling you folks, this is a blast out here with Matt.
You're out fishing, how could it not be good?
Right? This is great.
Good fish on here, Chris.
Yeah. This is a nice one. Yanking by drag. Holy crap.
42, 39, 56, you can say she's got it all.
Outdoor Secrets Unwrapped in the Kitchen is brought to you in part by Mercer Sport.
Hey, welcome back to Outdoor Secrets Unwrapped. I'm your host, Chris Bates. And boy, Matt, what a great, fantastic time I had pike fishing.
Absolutely.
You know, the day started out kind of cloudy. The sun came out a little bit, and then it went cloudy again. But yet we still caught fish.
Yep.
Now, where were some of the places that we covered?
So we're looking for weed lines. You know, most of your weed growth is going to be under 20 feet of water.
Mm-hmm.
So that outer weed edge, pike or predators are looking to ambush prey. So I'm trolling the outer edge of those weed lines, and 15 to 18 feet of water seems to be most productive for us.
And I know that we went quite a ways. how far did we travel today trolling?
We've probably covered a mile and a half, 2 miles worth of trolling. You know, we were in the Mallett's Bay, Colchester region of Lake Champlain, which is just the southern islands. We started up in the South Hero area, worked our way back down into the Bay area.
Yeah. So the other thing too is, you know, people always talk about guides. Real quickly, how would I go about finding a guide? Say I want to find third alarm charters. What am I looking to do? And how do I know I'm getting the right guy?
Well, first off, trying to pick your destination. And a lot of my clients I get are here tourism based or here in Vermont for a wedding, for vacation or whatever.
Yeah.
Lake Champlain's our biggest body of water, the 6th Great Lake as we talked about earlier on. So looking up Lake Champlain fishing charters. And when you dial that in, you're going to find me right on the front page.
So I find you, right? I find third alarm charters. And I go, well, how do I know if the guy's any good, knows what he's doing?
Yep.
What do I look for? Do I look for equipment? Do I look for references? How do I go about doing this? Because I think part of the problem is that we don't know how to do that.
Yep. Client reviews. You know, references, definitely word of mouth is huge. And for local folks that get a chance to talk to somebody else that's fished with me or another guide. But I would strongly suggest when you look at somebody's website, you know, look at the duration of the season they're doing, the species they're targeting, and look for references. I've got over 20 reviews on my website. My TripAdvisor is pushing 50 reviews now.
Wow.
So that right there shows the duration, amount of time I put on the water.
Right.
And any good guide should be putting their time in to not only find the species, but to put you on the water.
Right. So, you know, because so many times I hear these horror stories, you know, and they're like, oh, I don't know if you want to go out with that guy, or he's not really nice with clients, or he's just all professional, or he's all just fun and games. It's like, does it really matter?
Well, if you look at somebody's website, their social media exposure, look at their photographs, look at the dates on them.
Right.
There should be a good mix of clients from male to female to kids to elderly. You know, it shows the diversity of the species they're catching, but they're good with teaching, good at taking other students out there.
So, and you brought something up about kids. Do you take kids out just specifically looking for panfish or you know, something fun for them to do?
We do our best to gear our trip around the, you know, the diversity of the people we're taking out, their experience level.
Right.
And many times if a family calls me and said, hey, I've got 2 or 3 children that are going to be ages 8 to 10, we might throw some live bait in with us too, and catch some panfish too.
Right.
Something to keep that activity level up.
Yeah, because, you know, there's nothing worse than sitting around doing nothing. Unlike with adults, we have all kinds of stuff we could talk about where you have kids and they're like,
got to keep that activity level up for them. Absolutely.
So how do people find you?
Well, when you go online and look up Lake Champlain fishing charters, if you Google that, I'm at the top of the front page. So either Lake Champlain fishing charters or third alarm charters, both of those will bring you right to my website.
And do you have a phone number?
Yep, 802-345-7949.
All right,
Chris,
well, thank you so much. I had a great time catching pike.
Absolutely.
And hey, everybody, if you're looking for a guy, right here, thirdalarmcharters.com. I'm telling you right now, you'll have a blast. We'll talk to you all next time.
Outdoor Secrets Unwrapped is brought to you in part by White Rocks Design Studio, who has been serving southern Vermont for over 25 years. The Outdoor Experience, Wisconsin's top-rated guide service on Lake Geneva. Corker Boats, P-Line, New England's #1 craft-made hot sauce with that big craft taste and that big craft heat. Mercer Sport, Targets Unlimited, Sugar Mountain Trading Company, Cooler Guard Spray with the cleaning power of enzymes, Okuma Fishing, and a proud member of the Southwestern Vermont Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you again. May God bless you. Adios. Wise men say only fools rushing. But I can't falling in love.